12 hours. 12 grueling hours through a brutal Ontario blizzard, my knuckles white on the wheel, my joints screaming from old war wounds, all to bring Christmas to my daughter's doorstep. I hauled gifts, hand-knitted scarves, and a heart full of hope through snow so thick it choked the headlights. For what? To stand outside her door, frozen, and hear her voice sharp, cruel, laughing. I hope he doesn't make it through this storm. Her husband's chuckle echoed, mocking every sacrifice, every dollar, every sleepless night I gave for her. They didn't want me there. They saw me as a burden, a relic, a cash machine they could laugh at behind my back. The betrayal cut deeper than the Afghan shrapnel still lodged in my leg. Everything changed. Their lives unraveled. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and let us know in the comments where you're tuning in from, whether it's somewhere beautiful in Canada or anywhere else in this amazing world. The snow battered my old pickup as I pushed through the last 500 kilometers from Thunder Bay to Kingston, Ontario, the wipers barely keeping up with the storm. My hands, scarred from Afghanistan and stiff with arthritis, gripped the wheel tighter with every gust. I'm William Fraser, a retired Canadian Forces veteran, and this was no ordinary drive. It was Christmas Eve, and I'd promised my daughter, Lila McDonald, I'd be there no matter what. The gifts in the back, hand-knitted scarves for Lila, art supplies for her husband. Evan Carter slid across the seat with every turn, wrapped in paper I'd chosen to match her childhood favorites. I'd sold my auto shop 10 years ago to fund her dreams, her wedding, her house, their car payments. Every ache in my joints, every flashback of Kandahar, I buried for her. Lila's house came into view, glowing with Christmas lights I'd helped hang years ago. "Dad, you'll make it, right?" she'd texted earlier, her words warm. But something colder waited inside. What I heard next shattered everything I'd fought for. The wind howled outside Lila McDonald's Kingston home, the Christmas lights casting a warm, deceptive glow across the snow-covered porch. My boots crunched as I stepped out of the pickup, the ache in my knees from old shrapnel wounds flaring with every move. I'd driven 1,200 kilometers from Thunder Bay through a blizzard that turned Highway 17 into a white nightmare just to see my daughter's smile on Christmas Eve. The gift bags, $200 CAD worth of hand-knitted scarves for Lila, premium art supplies for Evan Carter felt heavy in my frostbitten hands. I'd spent hours picking them out at the base center, imagining Lila's laugh when she saw the red wool scarf, her favorite color. My breath fogged in the -20 air as I climbed the steps, the weight of my sacrifices, my sold auto shop, my sleepless nights battling PTSD, all fading in the promise of family. I raised my fist to knock, then froze. Voices slipped through the thin wooden door, sharp and careless. "God, I hope Dad doesn't make it through this storm." Lila's voice cut through the night, each word a shard of ice in my chest. He's always dragging on about Afghanistan, like we owe him for his war stories. Her laugh, light and cruel, mingled with Evan's deeper chuckle. "Yeah, and those knitted scarves? They're hideous. He thinks he's Santa or something," Evan said, his tone dripping with mockery. "I mean, come on, Lila, wouldn't it be nice to have one Christmas without him hovering, guilt-tripping us about his sacrifices?" My hand, still raised, trembled. The gift slipped slightly in my grip, the crinkle of wrapping paper loud in the silent snow. Lila laughed again. "Exactly. Always going on about selling his shop for me like I ask him to. If the roads are too bad, maybe we'll get a break from his duty lectures," Evan snorted. "Duty? Right, he's just a walking bank account, isn't he?" The world tilted. My heart, which had carried me through Kandahar's dust and gunfire, felt like it was collapsing under a new kind of shrapnel. I'd given everything $100,000 CAD for Lila's house down payment, $50,000 for her wedding, monthly transfers to cover Evan's art flops. Every flashback I'd buried, every doctor's warning about my joints I'd ignored, was for her, for them. And here they were, laughing, wishing I'd crash in a ditch so they could have their cozy Christmas without me. The lights on the porch, the ones I'd strung up 3 winters ago when Evan claimed his back hurt, mocked me now. "He's getting old," Lila continued, her voice casual, like she was discussing the weather. "These drives aren't safe for him. We're doing him a favor if he stays home." Evan's laugh boomed. "Very generous of us." I stepped back, my boots sinking into the snow. The cold bit through my parka, but it was nothing compared to the chill spreading through my chest. My phone buzzed Lila's text. "Dad, drive safe. Weather's brutal." The hypocrisy burned. She'd sent it while laughing about my death. The bags in my hands felt like anchors, the scarves and paints now symbols of my blindness. I turned, slow and deliberate, back to my truck. The engine ticked as it cooled, exhaust fading in the frigid air. I didn't knock. I didn't call out. I just stood there, letting their words carve into me, each one a wound deeper than the last. Something snapped, not loud, not dramatic, but quiet, like a wire stretched too far. I climbed into the driver's seat, the gifts untouched beside me, and stared at the glowing house. This wasn't my home anymore, and what came next would change their lives forever. The snow swallowed the glow of Lila McDonald's house as I stumbled back to my truck, the gift bags for her and Evan Carter heavy in my hands, now useless tokens of a love they'd mocked. I sank into the driver's seat, the cold leather biting through my parka, but it was the sting of Lila's words, "I hope Dad doesn't make it," that burned deeper than the -20 Ontario night. My hands, scarred from Afghanistan shrapnel, shook as I set the bags down, the red scarf I'd knitted for Lila staring back like a cruel joke. 12 hours on Highway 17, fighting blizzards and my own creaking joints, all for a daughter who laughed at my death. The silence in the cab was deafening, broken only by the faint hum of the cooling engine. My mind spiraled back through years of sacrifice, each memory a fresh wound. 15 years ago, I sold Fraser's auto repair, my life's work, for $300,000 CAD to pay off Lila's student loans and give her a head start. I'd turned down a chance to rejoin the Canadian Forces as a trainer in Petawawa, a dream that could have eased my PTSD because Lila begged me to stay close. "Dad, I need you here," she'd said, tears in her eyes, and I believed her. I paid $50,000 for her wedding to Evan, a man who couldn't hold a job. His art career propped up by my monthly transfers, $2,000, CAD, sometimes more, for their groceries, their mortgage, their life. I'd ignored my doctor's warnings about my knees, skipped physio to drive 1,200 kilometers for every holiday, every birthday, because family was my mission after Afghanistan. But now, Lila's voice echoed in my head. "He's just a walking bank account." Evan's laugh followed, sharp as a bayonet. Those hideous scarves. I stared at my phone, Lila's text glowing. "Dad, drive safe. Weather's brutal." Sent while she mocked me with Evan, plotting a Christmas free of my guilt trips. My chest tightened, not from the cold but from a betrayal that cut deeper than any battlefield wound. Had I been blind all these years? Every check, every missed opportunity, every night I woke sweating from war nightmares, pushing through for her, had it all been for nothing? The PTSD that haunted me, the flashbacks of Kandahar I'd buried to be her rock, felt like weights pulling me under. I was 62, my body broken from service, my heart shattered by the one person I'd lived for. "You're a fool, William," I muttered to myself, my voice hoarse in the empty truck. You gave everything, and they laughed. I needed to know if this was real, if Lila's cruelty was a moment or a truth. My fingers, stiff with arthritis, fumbled as I typed a text. Lila, hit some ice on Highway 401. Truck's okay, but I'm shaken up. Might not make it tonight. I hit send, my pulse hammering. Minutes passed, the snow piling on my windshield. Her reply came. Oh no, Dad, be careful. Maybe stay put if it's too risky. No offer to check on me. No worry beyond a few typed words. Evan's voice rang in my memory. Very generous of us. My phone stayed silent, no call, no follow-up. The truth settled like ice in my veins. I was nothing to them but a burden they wished away. As the Christmas lights of Lila's house faded in my rearview mirror, something shifted inside me. Not anger, not yet, but a cold, quiet resolve. This wasn't the end. It was the beginning of a reckoning they'd never see coming. The snow clung to my windshield as I drove away from Lila McDonald's house in Kingston, the Christmas lights fading into the dark like a promise broken. My truck's heater hummed, but it couldn't touch the cold that had settled in my chest after hearing Lila and Evan Carter laugh about wishing me dead. I hope Dad doesn't make it, Lila had said, her voice light, as if my 1,200-kilometer drive through an Ontario blizzard was a joke. Evan's mocking chuckle. He's just a walking bank account, still echoed, sharper than the shrapnel scars from Afghanistan that ached in my knees. The text I'd sent, claiming a minor accident on Highway 401, had revealed their true colors. Lila's curt reply, "Be careful," held no concern, no urgency. I was William Fraser, a 62-year-old veteran who'd given everything, my business, my health, my dreams, for a daughter who saw me as a burden. But that night, as I gripped the steering wheel, my mind sharpened, the fog of betrayal giving way to a clarity I hadn't felt since my military days. This wasn't defeat. This was the start of a mission. Back in Thunder Bay, my house on Red River Road sat dark, the Christmas lights I'd hung weeks ago flickering weakly under a fresh layer of snow. I didn't sleep. The weight of Lila's words pressed against me, but my training from the Canadian Forces kicked in. Plan, strategize, execute. I'd spent 15 years funding Lila's life. $100,000 CAD for her house, $50,000 for her wedding, $2,000 monthly transfers for Evan's art supplies and their endless emergencies. No more. I sat at my oak desk, the same one where I'd signed the papers to sell Fraser's auto repair, and pulled out my financial records. Bank statements told a story of blind generosity. $3,000 CAD for Lila's car repair last summer, $5,000 for their roof leak in October, $500 for Evan's art show that sold nothing, a conservative estimate. $250,000 CAD over a decade poured into a daughter who hoped I'd crash in a storm. My fingers, stiff with arthritis, opened my laptop. It was time to cut the lifeline. First, I logged into my Scotiabank account and froze the joint checking account I'd shared with Lila since she was 20. The automatic $4,000 CAD monthly transfer, her safety net for rent, groceries. Evan's paints ended with a single click. Transaction canceled, the screen confirmed. I pictured Lila swiping her card at Loblaws, her face crumpling as it declined. Next, I contacted my insurance broker, removing Lila as the beneficiary on my $1.5 million CAD policy. "Are you sure, Mr. Fraser?" the agent asked, voice cautious. "Absolutely," I replied, my tone steady, like giving orders in a war zone. "I want the Kingston Humane Society named instead. Animals don't laugh at your sacrifices. They don't call your hand-knitted scarves hideous. But money was just the start." Evan's smug grin as he mocked my duty gnawed at me. For years, I'd watched him at Kingston's farmers markets, selling his amateur paintings for cash, stuffing $100 bills into his jacket with a smirk that screamed he was cheating the system. I drove to the Thunder Bay Public Library, using their anonymous computers to avoid any trace. The Canada Revenue Agency's whistleblower page loaded efficiently. I typed, Avon Carter, 1247 Maple Street, Kingston. Unreported cash income from art sales at Kingston Farmers Market. Estimated $20,000 CAD annually, 3 years running. I listed dates I'd seen him, weekends when I'd driven down to help Lila and spotted his cash. Only deals. The CRA would dig. They always did. Evan's smugness would cost him penalties, interest, maybe an audit that'd bury him. Social pressure came next. Lila prided herself on her Kingston community, her book club, her hair salon job, her perfect life. I created an anonymous email, concernedkingstonresident@gmail.com, and sent a message to her salon's manager. I've heard rumors about Lila McDonald's financial troubles. It's affecting her work. Clients are noticing. Another email went to the local neighborhood association. Has anyone else seen the official letters piling up at 1247 Maple, worried about property values? Each word was clinical, calculated, like laying out a tactical map. I knew Kingston's tight-knit gossip mill would do the rest. Neighbors would whisper. Clients would cancel. Lila's carefully curated image would crack. Days later, my phone buzzed with Lila's first voicemail. Dad, something's wrong with the bank. My card got declined at Sobeys today. Can you fix it? Her voice was annoyed, not desperate yet. Evan's voice grumbled in the background. Tell him we need that money by Monday. I didn't reply. The next message, 2 days later, carried a sharper edge. Dad, the bank says our joint account is closed. This isn't funny. We can't pay rent. I saved each voicemail, documenting their panic like a soldier logging enemy movements. By day 5, Lila's tone shifted to fear. The CRA called Evan about his taxes. They're asking about his art sales. How do they even know? Dad, please call me back. I leaned back in my chair, the glow of my laptop illuminating bank statements and a notepad where I'd tracked their every reaction. Their world was unraveling, just as I'd planned. The neighborhood turned faster than I expected. A week after my emails, Lila left another message. Mrs. Thompson across the street won't even look at me now. People are saying we're broke, that we're a liability. What's happening? I pictured her standing on her porch, the same one I decorated with Christmas lights, now a pariah in her own community. Evan's next message was pure rage. Fraser, this is your doing, isn't it? The CRA, the bank, nobody else knows this much about us. His accusation was a spark of awareness, but they couldn't prove a thing. I'd covered my tracks, every move as precise as a sniper's shot. My final step was the will. I called my lawyer, Robert Mitchell, a man who'd handled my affairs since the divorce 15 years ago. I want to change my beneficiary, I said, my voice calm but unyielding. Lila's out. The Kingston Humane Society gets everything, house, investments, the works. Robert paused. William, this is big. Have you talked to Lila? I cut him off. She made her choice clear. I'm making mine. The paperwork was ready by week's end. $2 million CAD in assets, all redirected to animals who'd never betray me. I signed each page with deliberate strokes, feeling lighter with every stroke. Lila and Evan thought they could laugh at my sacrifices. They were about to learn what it meant to stand on their own. As I drove past their house one evening, 10 days after Christmas, I saw Lila's silhouette pacing behind the curtains, Evan's car still in the driveway but packed with boxes. Their panic was palpable, their perfect life crumbling under the weight of their own words. I didn't feel joy, not exactly just the cold satisfaction of a mission executed flawlessly. The real storm was just beginning, and they'd never see the full scope of it until it was too late. 2 weeks after I left Lila McDonald's house in the Kingston snow, her world began to collapse under the weight of my silent retribution. I, William Fraser, sat in my Thunder Bay home, the glow of my laptop illuminating the bank statements and voicemails that charted her descent. The $4,000 CAD monthly transfers her lifeline for rent, groceries, and Evan Carter's art supplies had stopped. The Canada Revenue Agency was circling Evan, their letter demanding records of his unreported $20,000 annual cash sales from Kingston's farmers markets. My anonymous emails had turned their neighbors into strangers, whispering about unpaid bills and declining property values. But the real blow came on a frigid January morning, when Lila's carefully curated life unraveled completely, leaving her alone in a way she'd never known. I drove the 1,200 kilometers back to Kingston, not to see Lila, but to observe the fallout from a distance. From a Tim Hortons parking lot a block away, I watched her house on Maple Street, the Christmas lights I'd hung now dark, the porch buried under fresh snow. My phone buzzed with another voicemail, Lila's voice thin and panicked. "Dad, I got fired from the salon today. They said clients are uncomfortable with my personal issues. How do they even know about our money problems? Please call me back." I didn't. The salon's manager, swayed by my anonymous tip about Lila's financial instability, had acted swiftly. Lila's job, her pride and joy, where she'd styled hair for Kingston's elite, was gone. I pictured her standing behind the counter, her confident smile fading as the email arrived. "Due to client concerns, we must terminate your employment." Evan's reaction was uglier. 3 days later, another voicemail. "Dad, Evan's freaking out. The CRA froze our accounts until he proves his income. He's blaming me, saying I must have told someone about his cash sales. We're behind on rent." Evan's voice cut in, sharp and accusing. "Lila, this is your fault. You and your precious dad." I saved the message, noting the crack in their unity. Evan, the man who'd mocked my hideous scarves, was crumbling under pressure he'd never faced. By the end of January, the inevitable happened. I drove by again, this time seeing Evan's beat-up Honda packed with canvases and clothes. Lila's silhouette stood at the window, motionless, as he peeled out of the driveway, headed for Toronto. His final words to her, overheard by a neighbor and relayed through Kingston's gossip mill, were brutal. "You're a sinking ship, Lila. I'm not going down with you." Lila's next voicemail came at 2 a.m., her voice barely above a whisper. "Dad, Evan's gone. He took everything, his paints, his clothes, even the television. He said I'm a burden, just like I said about you. I'm in this awful apartment now, 500 square feet, smells like mildew, above a laundromat on Princess Street. I can't afford anything else." The irony was sharp. She'd called me a burden, and now Evan had turned the word on her. The apartment, a far cry from their $400,000 CAD house I'd helped buy, was her new reality. I imagined her sitting on a sagging couch, the hum of dryers below drowning out her sobs, her book club friends no longer returning her calls. The neighborhood association had posted about financially unstable residents on their app, my words echoing in their judgment. Mrs. Thompson, who'd once baked cookies for Lila, now crossed the street to avoid her. The community's rejection was complete. Lila's final message that week was a plea. "Dad, nobody talks to me anymore. The book club kicked me out, said I'm too distracted. Even the cashier at Metro gave me this look when my card got declined again. What did I do to deserve this?" Her voice broke, and I felt a flicker of something, not pity, but a cold acknowledgement of her pain mirroring mine that Christmas Eve. She was learning what it meant to be truly alone, just as I'd stood alone in the snow, hearing her wish me dead. Evan's departure, the job loss, the social exile they were, the consequences of their own cruelty, orchestrated with the precision of a military operation. I leaned back in my truck, parked under a street lamp, the snow falling softly. Lila had lost everything, and the weight of that truth was heavier than any blizzard. But this was only the prelude. The real confrontation was coming, and it would break her in ways she couldn't yet imagine. The February wind howled outside my Thunder Bay home, carrying the bite of an Ontario winter that matched the cold resolve in my heart. 3 weeks had passed since Lila McDonald's life unraveled, her job at the Kingston salon gone, her husband Evan Carter fled to Toronto, her community turned against her. I, William Fraser, sat in my study, the oak desk littered with bank statements and saved voicemails, each one a testament to the chaos I'd orchestrated. The $4,000 CAD monthly transfers were history. The Canada Revenue Agency was hounding Evan for his unreported $20,000 cash sales, and Lila's neighbors whispered about her like she was a stranger. My plan, honed with the precision of my Canadian Forces training, had stripped her of everything she valued. Now, she stood at my doorstep, a shadow of the confident woman who'd laughed about my death on Christmas Eve. The doorbell rang, sharp and desperate, at 10 a.m. on a gray Saturday. I opened the door, and there she was, Lila, pale, her coat too thin for the -15 cold, eyes red from crying. "Dad, please." Lila's voice cracked, barely above a whisper. "I've lost everything, my job, Evan, my friends. I'm begging you, help me." Her hands trembled, clutching a worn purse, no longer the designer one I'd bought her for $300 CAD 2 years ago. She looked small, broken, standing on the porch where we'd once shared coffee and stories. I stepped aside, letting her into the living room, the same room where she'd opened Christmas gifts as a child, back when I believed she loved me. "I don't understand what I did," she said, collapsing onto the couch, her voice thick with tears. "The salon fired me, the bank's empty, and Evan, he called me a burden and left. Even the book club won't talk to me. Why is this happening?" Her eyes searched mine, pleading for answers, but I saw the flicker of guilt behind her desperation. She knew, deep down, why her world had crumbled. I sat across from her, my face a mask of calm, the same discipline I'd used in Afghanistan to face chaos. "You really don't know, Lila?" I asked, my voice low, steady, like I was debriefing a soldier. Her brows furrowed, confusion mixing with fear. "What do you mean? I've been trying to reach you for weeks, Dad. You've ignored me." I reached for my phone, the screen glowing with a file labeled the 24th of December. My fingers, stiff from arthritis, pressed play. Lila's voice filled the room, clear and venomous. "I hope Dad doesn't make it through this storm. He's always dragging on about Afghanistan like we owe him." Evan's laugh followed. "Yeah, and those knitted scarves? Hideous." The words hung in the air, each one a grenade. Lila's face drained of color, her hands flying to her mouth. "No, Dad, you were there?" she whispered, her voice breaking. "You heard us?" "Every word," I said, my tone cutting like the winter wind. "I stood outside your door, 1,200 kilometers from home, with gifts I'd chosen for you, listening to my daughter wish I'd die in a blizzard. You called me a burden, Lila. You mocked the sacrifices, the shop I sold, the $100,000 for your house, the $50,000 for your wedding. All of it," she sobbed, shaking her head. "Dad, I didn't mean it. It was just talk, stupid talk. Evan was stressed and I was tired. Please, you have to believe me." Her voice rose, desperate, but I held her gaze, unyielding. "You meant every word," I said. "You laughed while I stood in the snow, my heart breaking. And now you're here begging, because your life fell apart. But you built that ruin, Lila, you and Evan." She crumpled, tears streaming down her face. "I'm sorry, Dad. I'm so sorry. I'll do anything to fix this. I'll be better, I swear." Her words were a frantic plea, but they rang hollow, echoing the same entitlement I'd fed for years. "Fix it?" I asked, leaning forward, my voice cold as steel. "You think an apology undoes 15 years of taking me for granted? You think it erases the moment you hoped I'd crash so you could have your perfect Christmas?" Lila flinched, her sobs growing louder, but I didn't stop. "Everything you've lost, your job, your husband, your friends, is the consequence of those words. I didn't destroy your life, Lila. I just stopped saving it." The silence that followed was heavier than the snow piling outside. Lila stared at me, her eyes wide with the dawning realization that this wasn't a tantrum I'd get over. "Dad, please," she whispered, one last attempt. "You're my father. Doesn't that mean anything?" I stood, my shadow falling over her. "It meant everything to me," I said. "Until you showed me it meant nothing to you." I walked to the door, opening it to the biting cold. "Go back to your apartment, Lila. Figure out who you are without my money." She rose, trembling, and stepped into the snow, her footsteps fading as the door closed behind her. The reckoning was complete, but the final lesson was still to come. The February cold lingered in Thunder Bay, but a quiet warmth settled in my heart as I walked away from the confrontation with Lila McDonald. I, William Fraser, had faced my daughter's betrayal head-on, her tear-streaked face and desperate pleas. "Dad, I'm so sorry," still echoing as she left my home on Red River Road. The recording of her Christmas Eve words, "I hope Dad doesn't make it," had shattered her illusions, forcing her to see the cost of her cruelty. My plan cutting the $4,000 CAD monthly transfers, reporting Evan Carter's $20,000 unreported income to the CRA, turning Kingston's gossip mill against them had stripped Lila of her job, her husband, and her community. But as I sat in my study, the weight of those actions didn't haunt me. Instead, I felt a peace I hadn't known since Afghanistan, a clarity born from letting go of a daughter who'd never valued me. 3 months later, a letter arrived, the envelope bearing Lila's careful handwriting. I opened it in my kitchen, the morning light filtering through frost-covered windows. "Dear Dad," it began, "I'm not asking for forgiveness or money. I just want you to know I'm different now. I work 40 hours a week at a metro in Kingston, stocking shelves for $16.75 an hour. It's hard, but it's mine. Evan's gone for good, and I'm glad. I'm learning who I am without his shadow or your support." She described her 500-square-foot apartment above the laundromat, the mildew smell, the creaky floors, but also the pride of paying her $1,200 CAD rent herself. "I understand now what you meant by duty," she wrote. "I took you for granted, and I'll carry that regret forever." Her words were steady, no longer desperate, but I felt no urge to reply. The lesson was taught, the mission complete. My life had found a new rhythm. I started volunteering at the Kingston Humane Society, driving the 1,200 kilometers every other weekend to spend time with animals who understood loyalty. The shelter's concrete floors and barking kennels were a far cry from the battlefields of Kandahar, but they grounded me in a way I hadn't expected. One dog, a gray-muzzled German Shepherd mix named Charlie, followed me everywhere, his brown eyes trusting, his tail thumping when I filled his water bowl. "You're a good boy, Charlie," I'd say, scratching his ears, feeling a warmth no human had given me in years. Charlie didn't care about the $250,000 I'd given Lila over a decade, or the auto shop I'd sold for her dreams. He just leaned into my hand, grateful for a moment of kindness. I'd started the adoption papers, ready to bring him to Thunder Bay, to share my quiet house with a companion who'd never betray me. Sitting on my porch one evening, the northern lights faint above Lake Superior, I thought about Lila's letter. She'd learned to stand on her own, to value work over handouts, but it was too late for us. The scars of her words, a walking bank account, were deeper than any shrapnel wound. Yet I felt no regret. Justice, like the Canadian winter, isn't always gentle, but it's fair. To the veterans watching, to anyone who's poured their heart into someone who didn't care, cherish those who value your sacrifices. Don't wait until you're standing in the snow, hearing the truth, to see who's worth your fight. Loyalty is rare, like Charlie's steady gaze or the quiet of a mission accomplished. Hold it close, because it's worth more than any dollar you'll ever give. As the northern lights faded over my Thunder Bay home, I, William Fraser, sat with Charlie, his warm weight against my leg a reminder of what loyalty truly means. Lila McDonald's letter, tucked in my desk, marked the end of a journey that began with her cruel words on Christmas Eve, "I hope Dad doesn't make it," and ended with her learning the value of standing alone. The pain of her betrayal, the $250,000 CAD I'd poured into her life, the laughter of her and Evan Carter as they mocked my sacrifices, all of it led me to this quiet peace found in a Kingston shelter with a dog who asks for nothing but kindness. This story isn't just mine. It's for every veteran, every parent, every soul who's given their all only to be cast aside. If it moved you, if it made you reflect on the worth of loyalty, please hit that like button on Maple Revenge. Drop a comment, tell me, what would you do if the ones you love turned their backs on you? Your stories keep this channel alive, so subscribe and ring the bell to join us. Next week, we're diving into another tale. A Canadian soldier discovers a secret buried deeper than any blizzard, one that changes his family forever. Don't miss it. Let's walk this road together, honoring those who stand by us through the storm.